All right, today we are diving into a pretty intense geopolitical scenario involving Iran, the United States, and Israel. The core question we're looking at, based on our source material, is a wild one. What if a major diplomatic mission wasn't about finding peace at all, but was actually the final countdown to war? Let's get into it.
So let's just put the central question right out there, because this is what our sources are really digging into. What if the negotiations you hear about on the news are actually just a carefully constructed facade? You know, a kind of countdown clock, disguised as a peace talk. That's the whole premise we're going to unpack.
Okay, so this whole thing really starts with Iran's nuclear program. It's been the source of this incredibly tense standoff for years now. But to really get a handle on the stakes, you gotta look at a couple of key numbers that our sources highlight.
First, you have to understand the baseline here. According to the source material, Israel already has a nuclear arsenal. We're talking an estimated 90 warheads. So this isn't some future what if. This is the reality on the ground in the region right now.
And here's the other half of that equation. The source is claiming that with the enriched material Iran has right now, they could potentially build up to 7 atomic bombs. And it's that potential that is driving this whole crisis. So, just when it feels like tensions can't get any higher, a new player steps onto the board with a proposal that could, well, change everything. And that player is Russia.
So here's the official Russian offer. And on paper, it sounds like a pretty neat solution. Step 1, the US and Iran actually agree to a deal. Step 2, Russia comes in and physically transports all of Iran's sensitive nuclear stuff to its own territory. And Step 3, that material is locked down inside Russia, which would make it impossible for Iran to build a weapon. Seems like a perfect way out, right?
But here is where our source throws in a massive curveball. What if this proposal isn't about something that might happen in the future? What if it's actually cover for something that's already happened? I mean, what if Iran, fearing an imminent attack, has already secretly moved its nuclear material to Russia for safekeeping?
Now, if that's true, it is a total game changer. Think about it. Striking nuclear facilities inside Iran is a known military option. It's incredibly risky, sure, but it's on the table. But striking that exact same material once it's inside Russia? No way. That's an impossible target. You wouldn't just be attacking Iran, you'd be attacking a nuclear superpower that has something like 6,000 warheads. The whole calculus just changes completely.
And this brings us to the next chapter of this story, which really focuses on the human element. The source alleges that the whole diplomatic track being pushed by the US is actually a deliberate deception, and it all hinges on one key person.
And that person is Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy for the Middle East. Now, his official job is to negotiate peace, right? But according to the source, his secret, hidden mission is to actually create the justification for war.
Our source lays out this alleged 5-step plan. It supposedly starts with the envoy meeting Israeli leadership to get his marching orders. Then he goes into what the source calls sham negotiations, talks that are designed to fail from the start by making impossible demands. And once those talks inevitably fall apart, he just makes one phone call and the order to attack is given.
But why? I mean, why would anyone want to sabotage diplomacy? The source suggests a pretty powerful and counterintuitive motive. For Israel, the real threat isn't a nuclear Iran. It's a peaceful, economically powerful Iran that's fully integrated back into the world.
Let's just break that down for a second. A successful deal means sanctions get lifted, Iran's oil hits the market, its economy booms, and global investment just pours in. The argument is that this would create a much more powerful regional rival, and one with a lot more money to pour into its conventional missile programs, which are seen as a much more direct and immediate threat.
So you take all these different threads, the nuclear potential, the secret Russian move, the alleged diplomatic trap, and you weave them together. And what you get is a situation where the entire region is right on the brink, literally just one phone call away from a massive conflict.
But there's a big factor that our source says is making the US hesitate: its own weapons. The argument is that after sending huge amounts of missiles to Ukraine and Israel and needing to keep enough in reserve for a potential conflict over Taiwan, the US arsenal is stretched really thin. It might not be prepared for a long, drawn-out war with Iran.
And the consequences, if a war did happen, well, they'd be catastrophic. We're not talking about a short conflict. The source predicts a long, uncontrollable regional war. Oil and gold prices would go through the roof, U.S. military bases all over the world could become targets, and you have to remember, Iran is not alone. It's backed by major powers like China and Russia.
And yet, despite all that complexity, all those global consequences, the source brings it all back down to this one incredibly dramatic moment. A single phone call from an envoy to a president that could kick off a chain reaction that reshapes the entire world.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. In a game of global chess where the stakes are this impossibly high, when does a calculated strategic move become an irreversible mistake? That's the question at the very heart of this whole thing.